At first, I don't feel it. At first, I'm just a bruised up corpse, wavering in and out of consciousness, but then, a jolt. A serrated bolt of lightning flashes from the core of my being out to my extremities. My fingertips feel electric. I'm wide awake. I'm not scared anymore. I'm fucking wired. A dirty energy roars through my body. I feel 1,000 filthy suns burn in my chest. A rush of power so overwhelming, so ecstatic, that I can't help but to howl. Like a fucking wolf, I call out to the moon that I know shines for me somewhere beyond the city. My nose might be broken, and the feeling in my right arm may be gone, but I am a raging, walking god. Screw you, Professor Egghead, I scream, clutching the bathroom mirror. You can't get me when I'm awake. You can't do shit. I'm the one in charge now. There's a knock on the door. McDonald's security. They're saying they'll call the cops. I grab the baggie and bolt out the door. They're not chasing me, but I don't stop running. I sprint through the old town of Prague and let the history of the city envelop me. The place is like 1,000 years old, centuries and centuries of cobblestone, and churches and bullets and blood. And I'm on top of it all. I am the apex predator. My heart beats like it's about to jump out of my chest, and my entire being vibrates with a newfound will to live. It takes me a good minute to realize my phone is ringing. Oh, fuck. It's Teddy's father.
Hi, just calling to let you know I'm on the way to the airport. Couldn't find any direct flights on such short notice, but with a couple of layovers, I should be landing at around 8 p.m. tomorrow local time.
Cool, I say, still running.
No need to be in the house when I arrive. I still have Teddy's keys.
That's great. I try to focus on the conversation, but I can't. The lights of the city, the fresh air, the power boiling in my veins. It's also infinitely more interesting. For a moment, he's silent, but then Teddy's father lets out a labored sigh.
I'm also calling to apologize for yelling at you. I didn't mean to get angry, it's just that I love my son. When his mother passed, it was a difficult time for both of us. Teddy went off to his own little world with his collections, and I figured that if that's what he needed to do, I thought supporting Teddy during his move to Prague would help bring back my son, but I don't understand this business with the tape. I hope I will understand tomorrow. Look, I just wanted to apologize for yelling at you, and I also wanted to thank you.
For what?
For being Teddy's friend. He spoke very highly of you.
Another burst of euphoria flows through my chest. Of course Teddy spoke highly of me. I'm a really cool guy. Just as I'm about to say something to the same effect to Teddy's father, however, I accidentally hang up the phone. The man doesn't call back. Thoughts of the sad man disappear behind the sheer enjoyment of my drug-fueled sprint. I stop at the clock tower, not because I'm out of breath. I could run 10 miles if I wanted to, but because my nose starts bleeding again. I fish out some loose tissues out of my jacket and contain the damage. Flashes of light. A group of tourists take pictures of me. I'm more interesting than the clock tower show. They'll all be telling their families about the strange, energetic man covered in blood that they saw in Prague's old town. I pose for them, because why not? You only live once. I don't forget about him. I know that somewhere in the near future, I will come face to face with those rotting eyes again. But the thought doesn't bother me, because I just feel so fucking good. An hour ago, I was terrified of falling asleep before sunrise. Now I know that with enough willpower, I could outlast the nightmare for 100 nights. The bell of the tower rings 8 times. 8 p.m. That's when Teddy's father arrives tomorrow. That's when that horrible VHS tape will be out of my life. All I need to do is to keep myself occupied for the next 24 hours. With the chemical vitality coursing through my bloodstream, I don't have to cower in fear. I can prosper. A brave Chinese lady walks out of the crowd of tourists and poses in front of me. She's pointing at me, her face frozen in an exaggerated giggle for her husband's camera. I'm sure her family back home would get a kick out of the picture. But before her husband has a chance to snap the moment into eternity, I'm gone. I sprint to the subway station. I feel more energized than I ever felt in my life. I can't waste this boon of inspiration. I know what I have to do. The question of writing a book about my life was less of an if and more of a when question. As soon as I moved to Prague, I knew that I had a story worth committing to paper. Barely anyone who I went to high school moved outside of the suburbs. They weren't brave enough to seize life by the horns. They stayed home and started working dead-end jobs and having ugly children. They let the comfort zone consume them. I didn't. I traveled far from home and left my comfort zone in the dust. As soon as I moved to the bright city of Gothic stone, I knew that my life was going to get captured in a book. The nose full of meth just gave me the extra push that I needed. As soon as I entered the subway, paragraphs worth of words about the unfriendliness of the locals started to rapid fire in my mind. The carriage is full of grumpy Czechs who all look like someone spit in their food. Those tired faces, the rumbling of the train. It inspires me, but it also bores me. Not wanting my burst of vitality to be sucked away by the gray surroundings, I pop in my headphones. I hope that the drums of the Warriors of Perun will keep me energized. And they do. They even get me moving. At first, it's just a tap of the foot. As I take in the steady flow of music in my ears, I can't help but tap along to the beat. But as the music grows, as the rhythm of the drums turns savage, my feet give up on restraint. I start stomping along to the rapid-fire blasts buzzing in my ears. Soon enough, I'm dancing. My nose starts bleeding again. The other commuters step back in disgust, but that just gives me more space to dance. My arms and legs move independently of conscious thought. My body sings a primal song to the breakneck tempo of life. I stand in a steadily thickening pool of my own blood, but I've never felt more alive. The music beckons me towards a grimy rapture. I close my eyes and I follow it. Applause. Just as we pass Smihovske Nadraji, I hear applause. For a moment, I try to deny it. For a moment, I try to keep my eyes closed and focus on the powerful music in my ears, but I can't. I know he's watching me. I know Professor Egghead is nearby. The other passengers of the subway have cleared away to make room for my blood-soaked dance, but when I open my eyes, I see him in front of me. His body is still an egg-shaped abomination, only vaguely resembling a human. His stubby legs hang from the train seat like malformed baby limbs, but Professor Egghead's eyes are different. They're wide open and shaking.
Amphetamines were first synthesized in 1887 by Romanian chemist Lazar Delianu.
The egg creature rasps breathlessly as if he was delivering a lecture in front of a firing squad.
Yet it wasn't until the Second World War that they attained common usage. Nearly all branches of the Wehrmacht armed forces utilized the benefits of the miracle drug. Without amphetamines, the Blitzkrieg would have been impossible.
I shut my eyes and turn up the music to a deafening volume. With my soul wavering between spine-crackling ecstasy and soul-shattering fear, I dance. I stomp, and I spin, and I jump, hoping to drown out the professor's demented lecture. Yet no matter how hard I try to ignore his high-pitched torrent of useless information, I know he's there. I know those quivering yellow eyes are watching me. When the subway arrives at my station, I burst out the door. For a blessed moment, I am alone. Sprinting through the dark streets, the night air starts to wash out the sweat and panic of my system. But the moment of energized tranquility doesn't last long. Behind me, I hear the brisk staccato of the professor's shoes. He's moving faster than an egg-shaped man ever should.
Methamphetamines stimulate dopamine production in the user's brain beyond the scope of any activity or substance.
The nightmare screeches as he runs behind me.
Sexual intercourse increases the dopamine's units to 200. Cocaine and heroin increase the dopamine's units to 400. Methamphetamines increase the brain's dopamine production to 1,500 units. On a chemical scale, there's nothing like the pleasure that is coursing through your veins right now.
My hands are so numb, I have trouble finding my keys. The drugs, the fear, the pain, a chaotic system of filthy life buzzes in my veins, threatening to send me clattering down to the ground. Yet the toxic fire burning in my chest steadies me. When I finally get the door to the apartment complex open, I jump in and slam it shut.
The burst of euphoria from the usage of methamphetamines, however, has its price.
The professor says from behind the glass entrance to the complex. As I run to the elevator, I pray the locked door will keep him away from me. As I shake in the elevator, I even start to believe it. Yet by the time I reach my unit, he's standing in the hallway, waiting for me.
What goes up must come down. That is science.
I slam the door behind me. I lock it. I chain it. But it doesn't matter. When I turn around, the professor's on my couch, lying on his side, staring at me with his quivering eyes.
The side effects of methamphetamine usage were so severe that within a year of the war effort, the Nazi High Command restricted the stimulus for only the most dire of cases. The withdrawal effects left the soldiers.
I put my earphones back in and head for my computer. The Egghead continues detailing the dangers of methamphetamine withdrawal from my couch, but I don't listen to him. I don't care about suicidal migraines of psychosis. I can't afford to care about those things. I only care about staying awake until Teddy's father arrives. I open up Microsoft Word and stare at a blank page. At first, all I can think about is the Egghead. At first, all I can think about are the prophecies of horrible withdrawal syndromes he whispers about. But the dirty sun that burns inside my chest flares up. A new, overwhelming surge of energy courses through my body. I can't stop typing. The fingers on my right hand make mistakes, but I ignore their folly. Even though they shake and misjudge their movements, they are attached to a mind burning with inspiration. Typos can be corrected later. The magic flow of creativity cannot be postponed. As I weave gold on the page, time dissolves into nothingness. I become the center of the universe. Every step that I ever took back home was leading me to Prague. Everything I ever did in the States pointed me towards the Bohemian paradise where I could become the truest version of myself. From my depths, an artistic soul demands to be let out. My inner Bohemian takes control. Yet as I write about my zany adventures in the heart of Europe, something else emerges from my depths. A headache. It starts off light, as a simple itch behind my eyes. But soon enough, it grows into a palpable strength. My nose starts to itch.
The withdrawal symptoms from methamphetamine usage are so severe that most users will binge the drug just to avoid the come-down phase.
The egg-shaped abomination's voice booms past my music.
But no one can ever run forever. What comes up must come down. That is science.
The morning sun illuminates him as if he were a deity. His eyes shine like two sickly moons. For a moment I believe him. For a couple beats of my tiring heart, I despair over the future that awaits me. But then I do more meth. The rush is just as instant as before, but I feel no need to vocalize it this time. I just go back to the keyboard and continue churning out my life story. As the hours fly by, the room becomes far too bright. I shut the windows. I dim the screen. I let my fingers work in the dark. Whenever the headache starts to crawl back through my skull, I reach for the magic powder. But the pain is relentless and my supplies are limited. By the time I start writing about Petra, all I have left is an empty plastic baggie. The headache persists. It squeezes any capacity my mind has for clear thoughts. The base of my skull feels like it's on fire. I'm in agony, and I feel empty. I feel so empty.
You will come back to Professor Egghead,
He says.
Soon enough, you'll be back in the supermarket. Soon enough, you'll be making the audience laugh. Soon enough, you'll serve me.
Even in the dark room, I can see his eyes. They shine with an indescribable madness. They shake with unbridled excitement.
Professor Egghead always gets what he demands.
No, I yell, partly for him, but mainly to calm down the fire that's starting up in the pit of my stomach. I can do this. I can outlast you. When Teddy's father gets here, you'll be his problem.
Professor Egghead always gets what he demands.
He simply repeats. I make myself another quadruple espresso and turn on all the lights in the apartment. A sudden flash of brightness hurts my eyes and the coffee burns my tired tongue. But the real pain comes when I turn on the screen of my laptop. It's all gibberish. 47 single-spaced Microsoft Word pages of random letters and numbers. The migraine, the broken nose, the soreness in my arm, it all hurts, but it's the realization that I am a moron that is true agony. My one saving grace, the one thing that stops me from just lying down and traveling to that horrid dimension of television static, is the clock in the right-hand side of the screen. 8:05 p.m. Teddy's father is already in Prague, and he is on his way to rid me of my egg-shaped burden. Briefly, the thought of rescue eases my mind, but a wave of exhaustion and pain takes precedent almost immediately. Any shred of confidence I have ever had in my life feels misplaced. The minutes pass like a slug crawling through broken glass. Every sound from the hallway is followed by a painful realization that Teddy's father is not behind the door. I find myself leaning back in the couch, dreading the drug-fueled running I indulged in the night before. I struggle with every part of my drained being to stay awake. Professor Egghead sits opposite of me, smiling.
Professor Egghead always gets what he demands,
He says, and then he yawns. I yawn too. His eyes stop their frantic shaking. They still look sickly, but there's a calmness behind them. He yawns again.
Come join Professor Egghead.
He says, closing his eyes.
Come and serve me in the name of science.
I rush to the bathroom to retreat to my filthy sink. The water is murky with blood and grime, but I have no choice. Misjudging my footing, I end up slamming my face on the inside of the sink. The porcelain holds, but a string of warm scarlet blood travels through the pink water. I watch the blood flow from my nose, unsure of how much sleep deprivation I can take. My body answers my question. Not a lot. I gasp for breath, but almost immediately lower my face back into the sink. The world outside of the water is far too comfortable, far too warm, far too soft. I turn on the cold water tap and let a stream of frigid water cool the back of my head. It helps, but the exhaustion dragging my body down isn't something that can be fixed. My sleepiness is terminal. I stand by the sink, taking deep breaths and plunging my head underwater as if I'm trying to expand my lung capacity. But my body starts to give up. I start to wonder what would happen if I never came up for air. I start to wonder whether Professor Egghead would haunt me past the grave. I decided to test that theory.
What are you doing?
A kind voice screams before my face is hauled out of the murky water.
Are you trying to drown yourself? Please don't do that. There's already enough pain in the world.
His sad blue eyes stare at me. In one hand, Teddy's father is clutching the side of my bloodied shirt. In the other, a pair of keys.
What are you doing?
He asks, his voice shaking. I have resorted to extreme measures to escape Professor Egghead, I say. He lets go of my shirt gently, letting me hold myself up against the sink. His eyes drift across the dirty bathroom. I see my reflection in the mirror. It doesn't look good.
Did Teddy also do drugs?
The man asks. No, I say.
Good.
He's about to say something else. He's about to ask me if I'm okay, but the beeping in the back of my skull informs me that there's no time for small talk. VHS in Teddy's room, I say as I stumble past him. Professor Egghead is still sitting next to the couch, his eyes closed in a peaceful nap, but I don't care. The only thing I care about is getting the beeping that echoes through my soul to stop. I crash down on the couch and try to conserve the little energy I have left. Just watch the tape and get this egg-shaped monstrosity out of my life, I say. The man sets off to Teddy's room without a single word. But he stops at the doorway. Past the mist of my tired eyes, I can see him looking at me.
Thank you again for being Teddy's friend.
He says. Sure. I sigh, too preoccupied with the cocktail of exhaustion and agony flowing through my body. Just watch the fucking tape, would ya? I say, trying to hold on with what little strength I have left. He closes the door, and soon enough, I hear the rumbling of a familiar canned applause. I sit up. The beeping in the back of my head disappears. The single piece of good news calms my flailing soul. The beeping is gone. I'm safe. The television next door booms with Professor Egghead's ravings. As the studio audience laughs and claps, the sleeping manifestation of the Egghead in front of me smiles. He looks like a baby with some terminal disease that's having a nice dream. Briefly, I feel like I might join him in the land of sleep. Like, I might finally get some rest. But a shout from the other room jolts me awake.
Teddy! Oh, Teddy, what have they done to you?
Teddy's father yells. The studio audience goes silent.
Teddy, can you see me? It's me, Dad. I love you.
Dad?
I hear Teddy say.
Dad, where are you? Help! I'm scared.
The studio booms from the television. The sleeping Eggman in front of me is no longer smiling. His disgusting eyes are wide open. He isn't happy. Without even looking at me, the professor gets up from his sleeping spot and waddles over to Teddy's bedroom.
I am Professor Egghead,
He screams.
and these are my adventures.
Teddy's father screams something, but he's drowned out by the wild clapping of the audience. For a moment, the whole apartment is filled with echoes of laughter and applause. But then, with an electric pop, everything goes silent. I lie on the couch, staring at the cracks in the ceiling, wondering if it's all over. But when I close my eyes, there is no beeping. When I close my eyes, I feel like I'm all alone. When I close my eyes, I feel like I can rest without becoming a character in Professor Egghead's adventures. The gates of sleep invite my tired soul to rest. I am more than willing to enter their soft kingdom, but I don't. Past the exhaustion and pain and methamphetamine withdrawal, there's still a part of me that is holding on to wakefulness. It's the part of me that craves closure. I shamble my way over to Teddy's room. The tape is paused on the opening shot of the fast food restaurant. Teddy still stands behind the counter wearing the red uniform he wore before, but he looks calmer. I grab the remote and press play. The customers still don't eat their burgers. The line still doesn't advance. The audience still ushers in the walking nightmare with excited applause.
I am Professor Egghead.
The egg-shaped abomination screams from the television.
I demand the grilled carcass of an animal between two pieces of processed meat. I must receive nourishment before I indulge in the science.
I'm sorry, sir.
Teddy whispers like he did before.
There are other customers. If you just wait your place in line.
There are no other customers than me, Professor Egghead.
The professor screams as he drags down the innocent bystanders to their deaths.
I demand flesh and bread. I demand fuel for my body, so I can commit my mind to science.
Please, sir, don't hurt the other customers.
Teddy begs.
I will destroy all that is in my path in the name of science. Bring me a feast worthy of a philosopher king.
By the time the maddening scientist is standing in front of Teddy, the kid is visibly shaking. But he still manages to get his lines out.
Okay, Mr. Egghead. What can I get you?
I am a professor.
The Eggman screeches.
I have attended all the universities in the world. I have dedicated my life to the pursuit of knowledge, and I will be addressed with the respect that I deserve.
I am sorry, Professor Egghead. What can I get you?
I want the finest meat which the slaughterhouse can provide, served on buns of processed virgin wheat.
I'm afraid we don't have that item on the menu.
Teddy says.
But if you want, I can call my manager.
Yes, I wish to communicate with the king of this eatery, not a mere cog in this dining machine. Call forth a master of the food so that I can be given the banquet I demand.
Dad!
Teddy yells.
Dad, Professor Egghead wants to speak to you.
The red uniform barely fits around the man's paunch, and Teddy's father looks unsure of his movements. Yet as he places his hand on his son's shoulder, a smile comes across his face.
Hello, I am the manager of this fast food restaurant. How can I help you?
A father and son working together. This is the true meaning of family. This is the true meaning of love.
Professor Egghead screams as the studio audience lets forth a round of ahs.
The only love which I know is my undying love of science. I only have lab beakers and microscopes to hug. The egghead is so alone.
Professor Egghead's admission of loneliness makes the audience explode with laughter. Watching the father and son stand together in front of the unhinged monstrosity brings a smile to my face. Even past the roaring pain that claws at my body, I can appreciate a happy ending. I find myself laughing along with the invisible crowd. But then, I stop. A familiar supermarket flickers on the screen of the television. The checkout lane is still empty. The balding man stands in front of the line with his cart. He's looking at me.
There's no escape from Professor Egghead.
He says.
Many have tried and none have succeeded. His demands will always be met. Just follow the script and...
The visage on the screen explodes into a burst of electricity and shattered glass. After throwing the remote through the television, I rip out the VCR and stomp it into tiny bits of plastic. As I destroy the place from which Professor Egghead first came, I find myself weeping. I find myself weeping for my lost soul. No amount of tears or force, however, can stop the unstoppable. Professor Egghead's demands are always met. As I write this, I'm lying on the couch, a bruised up corpse, wavering in and out of consciousness. I have resigned myself to my fate. I know that I will be a part of Professor Egghead's adventures soon. I know I can't fight destiny anymore. If there's one thing I can give to this world before I'm forced into the demented dimension in which the Egghead makes his demands, it's a warning. If you ever find a VHS tape titled Professor Egghead's Adventures, don't watch it.
This whole trilogy of stories was narrated by Sean Brodeur and featured the voices of Joseph Cervelin, Lana Cintari, Tom Coco, Rachel Bird, Petr Buha, and Vera Langerova. The majority of the music was provided by Petar Mrdian, with the occasional tune from Kevin MacLeod making an appearance. The cover art was drawn by Teresa June Kolarikova. The stories were written, produced, and edited by me, Mike Jesus Langer. Wanted to pop in and say thank you to everyone involved in the production, but also to give a quick shout out to everyone who commented and liked the video. All of the engagement on the videos has really helped the channel grow over the past couple of weeks, but more importantly, knowing that you're listening and enjoying the stories makes it that much more fun to write them. Thank you for indulging me and supporting my art. It means a lot to me. There's oodles of other narrations on this channel if you'd be interested in listening to more of my fever dreams, and if you want to consider yourself a patron of the arts, I have a little Professor Egghead inspired coffee mug that you can snag down in the comments below. Professor Egghead will be back at some point next year, but for the time being, let me leave you with a little song I wrote while procrastinating from writing. Once again, thank you for the support. I'll see you next week with a story about violent gingerbread men. Hope everyone is safe, sane, and healthy out there. When I close my eyes, it's beeping. I hear him in the night screaming about science. His arms are stronger than they should be. The egghead, he is after me. Oh, his tired eyes, they watch me. Oh, those grubby hands, they reach out to touch me. I'm scared no one will believe that the egghead, he is after me. Oh, how I just wanna go to sleep. Oh, how I long to dream. But when I close my eyes, I hear a beep of the checkout machine. I've resorted to hard drugs. Meth is the only thing that's keeping me dreamless. I'm scared of what is to be, 'cause the egghead, he is after me. Oh, how I just wanna go to sleep. Oh, how I long to dream. But when I close my eyes, I hear a beep of the checkout machine.